The old German shepherd hadn't barked in months. His hips ached, his muzzle grayed, and his days passed in long naps beneath the oak tree by the porch. But that evening, as the wind rattled through broken fence and the smell of rain pressed heavy over the small town of Willow Creek, Rex rose stiffly, ears twitching. His claws scratched against the damp boards, then carried him toward a dented trash can that had stood untouched for years. What he unearthed beneath the rust and rot would tear open a wound the town had buried, and force long-kept secrets into the light. If you enjoy stories that linger in your mind long after the last word, I'd be grateful if you considered liking and subscribing. It helps keep these kind of stories alive. The rain came down thin and cold, the kind that seeps into clothes before you realize you're wet. Sheriff David Harlan stood on his porch, one hand cupped around a chipped mug of coffee, the other holding the screen door open just enough to watch Rex lumber into the yard. "Don't go too far. Oh, boy," Harlan muttered. His voice was roughened by years of bourbon and too many nights alone. Rex ignored him. The dog's gait was stiff, deliberate, his tail a heavy pendulum that barely moved anymore. For months, Rex had been nothing but a shadow at Harlan's side, more memory than presence. But tonight, something had stirred. The trash can sat against the fence at the far edge of the property. Bent rusted, its lid warped so rain pooled on top. Harlan hadn't touched it in years, didn't even remember what was inside. Probably nothing but dirt and spiders. Rex began to paw at it. Slow, dragging scrapes at first, then harder, urgent. His nails clanged against the metal, and a low whine escaped his throat. "Rex," Harlan frowned, setting his coffee aside. "What the hell's gotten into you?" The dog's growl came from deep in his chest, a sound Harlan hadn't heard since his days on the force. He crossed the yard, rain dripping off his hat brim. With a grunt, he grabbed the lid and pulled. The hinges screeched. Inside, a black plastic bag lay folded, swollen with damp. The smell hit first. Sharp, sweet, unmistakable. Harlan staggered back. Sleeve pressed his face. His stomach lurched, and memory, 20 years of police work, flashed through him in one brutal instant. Jesus Christ. He crouched, hands trembling, and peeled back the bag. Bone glistened white against the black plastic, long strand of hair matted and wet. A necklace dangled from what had once been a neck. Rex sat beside him, whining softly, tail thumping once against the mud. His cloudy eyes fixed on Harlan's face. Waiting, Harlan whispered, "It can't be." The call went out just after midnight. By morning, Willow Creek buzzed with rumor. Trucks slowed along Harlan's property. Neighbors gathered on porches, whispering, trading old stories they'd sworn to forget. Deputy Clara Morales pulled her cruiser into the drive, tires crunching gravel. She was young, too young, Harlan thought, for what she was about to step into. But she had steel in her eyes and more spine than most men he'd served with. She approached, raincoat dripping. "Sheriff, you didn't say much over the radio." "I said enough," Harlan muttered. His face was pale, drawn. "Bag in the trash can. Human remains." Morales swallowed hard, eyes flicking to under its tarp. "Who called it in?" He hesitated. "Rex." She blinked. "The dog?" "Yeah." His gaze dropped to Rex, who lay under the porch, breathing slow. He found it. They stood in silence, rain pattering on the tarp. Finally Morales said, "You think it's her, don't you?" Harlan didn't answer, because he did. Because 23 years ago, 17-year-old Emily Cartwright had walked out of Willow Creek High School and vanished. And Harlan had been the one to take her mother's trembling statement, the one to comb the woods with Rex, the one to come up empty-handed. By noon, the coroner's van rolled in, tires spitting mud. Sheriff Harlan stayed back while Morales supervised, though it got clenched with every gloved hand that reached into the can. Dr. Abrams, gray-bearded and slow-moving, lifted the necklace with tweezers, a silver locket, tarnished but intact. Morales glanced at Harlan. "Cartwright girl had one just like that, didn't she?" Harlan's jaw tightened. "Her mother showed me a photo. Same locket." The air grew heavy. The only sound was the rain, the steady hiss of it. Abrams bagged the evidence. "We'll know for sure once we run dental." But everyone standing in that yard knew already. That evening, Harlan drove through town, past shuttered shops and rain-slicked streets, until he reached a sagging white farmhouse at the edge of the valley. The porch light burned, weak and yellow. Inside, Martha Cartwright sat in her chair by the window, her hair silver now, her face gaunt. She looked up as Harlan stepped in, hat in his hands. "David," she said softly, her voice cracked but clear. "You found her." He froze. "How?" "A mother knows," Martha whispered. Her eyes shone with unshed tears. "I've been waiting 23 years for someone to bring her home." Harlan felt something twist inside him, sharp and deep. He wanted to tell her it wasn't certain, that they'd need proof. But her eyes pinned him, and he couldn't. Instead, he nodded once. Martha's hands trembled as she gripped the arms of her chair. "Don't let them bury her twice, David. Find out who did this." That night, Harlan sat at his kitchen table with the case file spread open. The paper smelled of dust and mildew. Names, statements, photographs. Faces of kids now grown, men and women who'd built lives far away from Willow Creek. One file slipped loose. A photograph of Emily, smiling wide, her locket shining at her throat. Harlan pressed the photo flat with his palm. His reflection stared back at him in the plastic sleeve. Older, heavier, more tired. And behind his reflection, Rex shifted, tail brushing the floor. "You brought her back," Harlan whispered. The dog's ears twitched, eyes cloudy but alert. Harlan stared at the file. "Guess it's on me to finish what I started." But something gnawed at him, deeper than the guilt, sharper than the grief. The trash can had sat on his land for years, which meant whoever had put Emily Cartwright there had done it under his nose, maybe even under his roof. The storm passed in the night, but the air stayed heavy. By morning, the clouds thinned into streaks of gray, and the streets of Willow Creek glistened clean and raw, like a wound wash but still bleeding. Sheriff Harlan drove through town with the case file on the passenger seat. The folder had felt heavier than it should, like it carried not only paper, but every unanswered question that had haunted him for 2 decades. Rex lay in the back, dozing fitfully, his breath shallow. The dog was near the end of his rope. Harlan could feel it. But somehow Rex had carried this burden to him, dragged a piece of truth out of the mud. Now it was Harlan's turn. The sheriff's office smelled of stale coffee and floor polish. Deputy Morales was already there, bent over her desk, typing notes with precise, clipped keystrokes. She looked up when Harlan entered. "They finished with the remains," she said. Her tone was careful, neutral. "Dr. Abrams confirmed it this morning. It's Emily Cartwright." Harlan lowered himself into his chair. His bones cracked in protest. Morales added, dental records matched. And the locket. Silence stretched between them. Outside, a truck rumbled past, its engine echoing down Main Street. Harlan said finally, "We reopen the case. Every lead, every witness, everyone who lied back then, we drag it all into the light." Morales nodded. "I already pulled the old suspect list." She slid a thin stack of photocopies across his desk. 3 names stood out. Harlan glanced down. He knew them all. Kyle Maddox, Emily's boyfriend. Hot-tempered, unpredictable. Last person to see her alive. Pastor Graham Whitfield. Rumors. Nothing ever proven. Spent a lot of time with troubled girls. Offered them guidance. Eleanor Price, best friend, gave conflicting statements. Changed her story more than once. Harlan's throat tightened as he stared at the names. He remembered their faces, younger, unlined. The years had changed them, but guilt had a way of surviving time. Morales leaned forward. "Which one first?" Harlan looked up. His voice was steady. "Maddox." Kyle Maddox lived in a weather-beaten trailer at the far edge of town, half hidden behind a stand of pine. Rust ate at the siding, and the yard was a graveyard of old car parts. Harlan and Morales climbed the steps. The porch sagged under their weight. Harlan knocked. The door opened a crack. Chain still on. A pair of bloodshot eyes peered out. "Maddox," Harlan said. "It's Sheriff Harlan. We need to talk." The door closed. Chain rattled. Then it swung wide. Kyle Maddox had grown into a thick-bodied man with guts straining against his undershirt. His hair was long, greasy, streaked with gray. A cigarette burned between his fingers. "What the hell do you want?" His voice was gravel. Harlan kept his tone even. "You heard the news. Emily Cartwright's remains were found." Something flickered in Maddox's eyes. Fear, anger, Harlan couldn't tell. He crushed his cigarette into a tin ashtray balanced on the windowsill. So, Morales said sharp, "We're reopening the case. You were the last person to see her alive." "That's bullshit." Maddox's face flushed. "I told you people back then. I dropped her off after the game. That was it. I didn't touch her." "Funny," Harlan said quietly. "You gave 3 different versions of where you dropped her. Main Street, the diner, her house. Which was it?" Maddox's jaw clenched. "It was a long time ago. Maybe I got mixed up." Morales stepped closer. "Mixed up about the night your girlfriend disappeared forever?" For a moment, Maddox's bravado cracked. His eyes darted toward the floor. Then he straightened, snarling. "You can't pin this on me. You couldn't 20 years ago, and you can't now." Harlan studied him. Sweat had broken across Maddox's brow. His hands shook. But there was something else, too. Something that didn't smell like guilt, but like fear. "Who are you scared of, Kyle?" Harlan asked softly. Maddox froze. His gaze snapped to Harlan, wide, startled. Before he could answer, a screen door slammed from across the yard. An old woman stepped out of a neighboring trailer, arms folded, glaring. "You leave him be, Sheriff," she called. "Haven't you hounded this boy enough?" Maddox seized a moment. "Get off my property." He slammed the door. The chain rattled back into place. Harlan and Morales stood on the porch in silence. Finally, Morales muttered, "He's hiding something." "Yeah," Harlan said. His stomach churned. "But maybe not what we think." That night, Harlan drove home through the dark. Rex stirred in the back seat, whining softly. When they pulled into the drive, the porch light was out. Harlan frowned. He was sure he'd left it on. He stepped out, hand on his gun. The night was still, the kind of silence that hummed in the ears. Then he saw it. The trash can, dragged 3 feet from where it had been. The tarp pulled loose, and painted across the side, in dripping red letters, "Stop digging." Harlan's pulse hammered. He spun, scanning the yard, the tree line. Nothing but shadows. He raised his gun, but the night answered with silence. Rex growled low, deep in his chest, his hackles bristling despite his age. Harlan stood frozen, the message glaring back at him. Blood bright under the porch light, he now realized had been cut. Morning brought Morales storming into the office, eyes blazing. "Someone broke onto your property?" she snapped. "And left a threat?" Harlan slid the photo across his desk, the one he'd taken of the red letters before scrubbing them off. Whoever killed Emily's been watching, maybe for years. Maybe they knew the kid was there all along. Morales leaned on the desk, jaw tight. "That means this isn't just some cold case. It's active, and they're scared we'll find something." Harlan nodded slowly. "Scared enough to come after me, which means we're close." The next lead took them to Eleanor Price. Eleanor lived in a neat little house on Maple Street, garden beds trimmed, shutters painted fresh. She opened the door with a smile too wide to be real. "Sheriff, Deputy, I heard the news." Her voice was bright, brittle. "Terrible, isn't it? Poor Emily." Harlan studied her. Her hair was dyed too dark, covering gray. Her hands trembled against the doorframe. "Mind if we come in?" "Of course." The house smelled of lemon polish. Family photos lined the mantel. Eleanor with a husband, 2 kids, vacations at the lake. A normal life, polished on the surface. But Harlan remembered the girl she'd been, restless, secretive, quick to anger, the kind of girl who could hide things. They sat in the living room. Eleanor perched on the edge of her chair, twisting her wedding ring. "I've told the story 100 times, she said quickly. "I don't know why you need to hear it again." "Because," Morales said evenly, "your statements back then didn't match. First, you said Emily left the party alone. Then you said Kyle walked her out. Then you said you didn't remember. Eleanor's face flushed. I was 17. Scared. Everyone was pressuring me. Were you scared? Harlan asked quietly. Because you knew who she left with? Her eyes snapped to him, sharp, defensive. No. I told you everything I knew. Eleanor, Harlan pressed. Someone put her body in a trash can on my land. That doesn't happen by accident. If you're protecting someone, it's time to say it. Tears welled in her eyes. She shook her head. You don't understand. Then help me. Her lips parted. For a moment, Harlan thought she would break. Her eyes flicked to the window, the neat little garden beyond. Then she snapped her mouth shut, wiped her eyes, and stood. I think we're done here. She showed them to the door, her face smooth again, voice calm. But as Harlan stepped off the porch, he glanced back. Through the glass, he caught a glimpse of Eleanor collapsing into a chair, face buried in her hands, shoulders shaking with sobs. That night, Harlan couldn't sleep. The storm of 23 years pressed in, memories clawing at him. He sat in the dark kitchen, the case file open, coffee gone cold. Rex lay at his feet, restless, whining in his dreams. The phone rang. Harlan snatched it up, heart thudding. Harlan. Static crackled. Then a low voice, distorted, whispering. Stop digging. Or Rex's next. The line went dead. Harlan froze, the words echoing in the silence. Then he looked down at Rex, who stirred, lifting his graying head. Harlan's jaw set. His voice was low, steady, a vow. Over my dead body. The night after the phone call, Sheriff David Harlan sat in the dark with his revolver on the table, and Rex stretched at his feet. He had lived with threats before. Criminals, drunks, angry husbands. But this one burrowed under his skin. Or Rex's next. The voice hadn't just threatened him. It had gone after the only soul left that Harlan trusted. Outside, Willow Creek lay quiet. Houses dark. Street lamps buzzing faintly against the fog. Somewhere beyond the trees, he imagined a pair of eyes watching. Harlan leaned down, scratched the old shepherd's ear. They don't get to take you too. The next morning, Morales stormed into his office, waving a report. We pulled prints off the trash can lid. 2 matches. Harlan straightened. Tell me. One was yours, she said, from the night we opened it. Figures. The other, she hesitated. Eleanor Price. The room went still. Harlan's chest tightened. You sure? Positive. He thought of Eleanor's trembling hands, the way she wept behind the glass when she thought no one saw. He thought of her shutting down when he pressed too hard. Morales crossed her arms. She's hiding something, Sheriff. Maybe she was in it all along. But Harlan shook his head slowly. No, not in it. Covering for someone. Who? He didn't answer. Not yet. They brought Eleanor in that afternoon. She sat across from them in the interview room, pale, lips pressed tight. Morales laid the report on the table. Your fingerprints. On the trash can where Emily was dumped. How do you explain that? Eleanor's hands shook. She clasped them together, eyes darting to Harlan. It was years ago. I was with her that night, remember? Maybe I touched it back then. Don't lie to us. Morales' voice was hard. You know what this means. Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes. I was trying to protect her. I didn't kill Emily. I swear. Harlan leaned forward. Then who are you protecting? For a long moment, Eleanor's face crumpled, lips trembling with words she couldn't bring herself to speak. Finally, she whispered, If I tell you, it'll destroy everything. Morales slammed her palm on the table. Emily's life was destroyed. Her family's been destroyed for 23 years. You owe us the truth. Eleanor shook her head, tears spilling. You don't understand. He's still out there. The word sent a chill down Harlan's spine. Who, Eleanor? He asked, voice low. Say it. She opened her mouth, then stopped. A shadow crossed her face, and she whispered, I can't. She shoved back from the table and fled the room before they could stop her. That night, Harlan drove the back roads, restless. The fog was thick, curling low over the fields. He wasn't driving anywhere in particular, just circling the weight of it all. The pieces rattled through his mind. Emily, Eleanor, Maddox, the locket, the threat, and the trash can on his land. He gripped the wheel harder, stomach twisting. 23 years ago, when Emily vanished, he'd been a different man. Younger, wilder, drinking too much, not as careful as a sheriff should have been. And in the file, buried deep in the statements, he remembered something. Eleanor had said Emily was supposed to meet someone that night. A man. She hadn't said who. At the time, Harlan had assumed Maddox. Everyone had. But what if it wasn't? What if it had been him? His hands went slick on the wheel. No. He pulled over, chest heaving, while rising. His memory flickered. Emily laughing at the diner, sliding into the booth beside him, teasing him about his coffee. Her locket flashing under neon. Had there been something more? A smile that lingered too long? A look he shouldn't have returned? Christ. Rex whined in the back seat, pawing weakly at the window. Harlan dropped his head into his hands. Could I have been the one? Could I have buried her and forgotten? But no. The bag, the can, the threat. If it were him, why was someone warning him to stop? Unless they were trying to make him think it was him. Unless someone wanted him broken. 2 nights later, the answer came in blood. Morales called just after midnight. Her voice shook. It's Eleanor. She's dead. Harlan sat bolt upright. What? They found her in her car. Carbon monoxide. Hose from exhaust into the window. Looks like suicide. Harlan's chest collapsed inward. He gripped the phone hard enough to whiten his knuckles. Suicide, he repeated. That's what it looks like, Morales said. But she hesitated. Sheriff, it feels staged. And Harlan knew, without doubt, she was right. The funeral was small. Eleanor's family sat stiff in the front pew, her children clinging to their father. The pastor droned on, voice hollow. Harlan stood in the back, hat in hand, feeling every stare in the room burn through him. He wasn't just the sheriff anymore. He was the man who'd failed them all. After the service, a hand gripped his arm. Kyle Maddox. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw tight. You don't get it, do you? Maddox hissed. You're stirring up things that should stay buried. Eleanor paid the price. You'll be next. Harlan shoved his hand off. What do you know, Kyle? But Maddox just sneered, shoved past him, and stalked out into the rain. That night, Harlan sat in his darkened kitchen, revolver on the table again, Rex asleep at his feet. Every sound in the house made his pulse jump. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind. At 2 a.m, glass shattered. Harlan was on his feet instantly, gun drawn. He moved to the living room, heart pounding. The window lay in shards across the floor. And there, nailed to the wall with a hunting knife, was a photograph. A younger David Harlan, arms slung around Emily Cartwright's shoulders. Her smile was bright. His face was blurred with drink. Scrawled across the photo in red. Killer. Harlan staggered back, stomach twisting. His mind reeled. He didn't remember that night. He didn't remember the photo. But someone had kept it all these years. Someone wanted him to believe. The betrayal cut deepest when it came from someone he trusted. 2 days later, Morales called him into the office. Her face was grim, her eyes dark with something he couldn't place. Sheriff, she said quietly, we need to talk. He frowned. About what? She slid a file across the desk. Inside, phone records. Calls. Dozens of them. From Eleanor Price's number to his. On the night Emily disappeared. Harlan's stomach dropped. I didn't. His voice broke. I don't remember those calls. Morales' eyes were cold now. That's the thing about guilt, Sheriff. Sometimes the mind buries it, but the records don't lie. He stared at her, stunned. You think I? Her hand rested on her holster. It's not just me. The DA's office wants answers. And until you give them, you're suspended. The room spun. It wasn't just the killer who was betraying him. It was his own deputy. That night, Harlan packed a bag. He couldn't fight this through channels. If they were framing him, The system wouldn't save him. He slung the bag over his shoulder, clipped Rex's leash, and headed for the truck. But the moment he opened the door, the stench hit him. Gasoline! His truck, doused, ready to burn. And standing in the shadows, a figure with a lighter. Kyle Maddox. "You should have stayed buried, Sheriff," Maddox growled. He flicked the lighter. Harlan raised his gun. "Drop it, Kyle." But Maddox just grinned, eyes wild. "You don't even know, do you? She wasn't mine. She was yours." The words froze Harlan's blood. "What the hell are you talking about?" Maddox stepped closer, lighter flaring in his hand. "Emily, you think she went missing? She was pregnant. Yours. Eleanor knew. That's why she covered for you. That's why she died." The lighter flamed, gasoline fumes thick. Harlan fired. The shot echoed through the night. Maddox crumpled, lighter clattering to the dirt. The flames died with him. Weeks later, the investigation closed. The evidence tied Maddox to Eleanor's death. His fingerprint on the hose, his threats recorded, his obsession with pinning Emily on Harlan. The DA cleared Harlan. Officially, but the stain remained. He stood on the ridge overlooking Willow Creek, Rex leaning against his leg. The valley spread beneath them. Emily was laid to rest beside her mother. The town whispered. Some believed Maddox. Some didn't. Harlan didn't care. What mattered was a quiet now. The truth or some fractured version of it. Finally in the ground. He looked down at Rex, who pressed closer, tired but still breathing. "You saved her. Oh, boy," Harlan murmured. "Brought her home." The shepherd's cloudy eyes blinked up at him, and for a moment Harlan felt a peace he hadn't in decades. The past couldn't be fixed, but sometimes it could be buried right. The wind stirred through grass, carrying the smell of rain. Harlan closed his eyes and let it be